Afternoon all. Today I have got a dustcart, Mercedes, Iconic, Maggot Wagon, call it what you want. There she is, quite a new one actually, and from the outside she's actually pretty clean. Right, there's our Paulie dustcart. To be fair, this is probably the cleanest dustcart I've ever seen. They're a little bit awkward to tow, these. Well, that's like, they're very awkward to tow. At least she's empty. So, one, they're normally very heavy on the front axle. And two, if you get a rear steer one, like this one is, once you go, any record driver will tell you, once you go past 45 miles an hour, you're risking it. Because at just over 45 miles an hour, the rear axle's known to come live. And yeah. Once that axle comes live, she'll start fishtailing down the road. So, lift and tow. So what we're going to do here is do a pre-lift. So you can see there the underlift extending out underneath the truck. There you go now. Boom, taken away. There she goes, up in the air, light underneath the front tyres. So when doing any pre-lift, you always want to get down low and actually see what you do. Make sure nothing's bending, nothing's not causing damage or anything like that. There you go. Keep looking down. See the bin lifts at the back there. You want to keep an eye on them. Make sure you don't overlift the front and push them into the ground because you could damage them. Obviously, pre-lift done, what we want to do now is get the wheel stands. So we use our wheel stands to elevate the front. So they go underneath the wheels, each side, and then we lower the vehicle down onto the wheel stands. What that does is that lifts the axle up in the air, just giving us that added room so we can get the forks under the axle and lift it. Also makes it a little bit safer for us when we go under there to chain down. Boom, retracting now. Bring that back so we can put the fork attachments into the pedestals. So because I'm recording this, I decided to go for a slightly different lift. So normally I'd go straight off the axle, which can be a bit of a pain on these because they actually have hollow axles on them. You'll see that the axle actually has holes in it. So I've seen quite a few people lift these on chain forks or pig straws, as they're commonly known. So as I'm filming, let's try something a little bit different, try and make it a little bit more interesting. You never know, somebody might see this and you know, decide to copy me, or it may help somebody out. Getting our forks into position, make sure they line up properly. Come on, Sean, find the hole. There we go. Beautiful. Forks in position. Now we're going to lift the vehicle up. As we're lifting, we're making sure everything's as it should be. Nothing's bending, nothing's breaking, there's nothing going wrong. So, next step is to chain the vehicle down. The vehicle is lifted and it's seated within the forks, but we use chains to chain the vehicle down and make sure it doesn't jump out should we go over a speed bump too fast or go over a humpback bridge. The last thing you want is the vehicle popping out of the fork, so we chain it down, make sure it doesn't go anywhere. So this is also the first time you get to see underneath a vehicle. Now when it's a dust cart, this is normally a pretty dreaded moment. This is when you find out how bad it actually is. Oh, the underside of a dust cart. What a beautiful thing it is. So here I am now, chaining the vehicle down. So this is actually me also trying to figure out which is the best method of actually chaining this vehicle down. Again, this is not a lift I've attempted before, so probably recording it on my first attempt of doing this lift was probably not the best idea, but again, somebody might find it interesting, so, and more importantly, it might actually help someone. Yeah, and if anybody's got any issues or got any questions about how you tow something, leave a comment down below and I'll do my best to help you. There we go. Chains go tight. What we want to see. And time to get out of there. So here it is from a POV point of view. So you get to see basically how I chained it down. Not going anywhere. Okay, so we've chained down now, put our wheel stands away. Heavy old lumps of metal they are, but understandably they've got to be made to be strong. The last thing you want is something light and flimsy when it's holding the truck above your head. One thing that people underestimate is how fit you have to be to wreck a driver. All of the equipment is heavy, and it does take a certain amount of muscle to constantly lug that about. Right, next step now is prop. Now because this vehicle doesn't actually have a normal half shaft, it has hub reduction. And where you can actually take apart a hub reduction, I have done it many times before, it's quite drawn out. It's a fairly messy process. So if you can, you take a prop off. It's 4 bolts. It just makes your life easier. The only downside is you have to get underneath. Now, fortunately, this dust cart's very clean underneath, thank God. I've been underneath dust carts before where they are literally dripping sludge and grime. It's some are absolutely horrendous. So I'm thankful, definitely thankful for this one being so clean. Now, because obviously there's 4 bolts evenly spread out around the prop shaft, you can only really get to 2. So, while you're underneath there, if you want to get to the top 2, what I do is, with the remote, roll the vehicle forward. It's an odd sensation, laying on your back and have a vehicle roll forward while you're underneath it, but it's just one of those things that as a record driver you just get on with. The joys of working on your back with an unsupported neck or unsupported head. Your neck starts to kill. So the way I take these off is with a spanner behind and an aircraft spanner just to crack the nut. Obviously aircraft spanners are quite a bit longer, so you get that extra torque to actually break the nut free. And then after that I switch over to ratchet spanners. God love whoever invented ratchet spanners. There you go, ratcheting that off now. Ratchet spanners really are a godsend. You hear all the cars flying past. No one gives a damn that there's a broken down vehicle. Yeah, that's an odd sensation as well. Being underneath a vehicle and having cars and vans fly past with absolutely no consideration that you're working there. It's yeah, so much for slow down, move over. Fuck off. See that little fucker? That's where we always leave the fucking last bolt on, just slightly. Things tried to kill you in this industry. The fuck is this strap? Now see what happened there. If I hadn't left that last bolt in, that prop shaft would have swung down and smashed me in the ribs, or worse yet, in the crown jewels. So yeah, when removing a heavy prop shaft off of one of these vehicles, always leave the last bolt in, because actually a colleague of mine, actually a colleague of mine that I used to work with got knocked clean out. Prop shaft dropped, hit him on the head, and he was underneath there for a good 30 minutes before anybody realised. So before you take the last bolt out, we strap the prop shaft up. So that means that the prop shaft can't actually fall down and hit us. Now that the prop shaft is supported by the ratchet strap, we manoeuvre it to where we want it to be, and then we ratchet it up. There you go, ratcheting it up now, and that'll support and hold the prop shaft out the way for its onwards recovery. Of course, any leftover strap, we don't want that getting tangled up in anything, so we just tie it off. Again, should that wrap up in something, it could rip airlines out, it could destroy sensors, rip sensors off, valves, you name it. So make sure it's tucked up and tied out the way. Oh, that is how you remove a prop shaft from a dust cart. And I am thankful this one is actually pretty clean. Still's busy under here. Mercs, when they build a chassis, they do like to cram it full of cables, pipes and God knows what. If you look around, there's no room for anything under here. They really do pack these out, the chassis rails. There is shit hanging off of every single fucking inch of this thing. Right, anyway, spent enough time under here, let's get out. And into the light. So one thing I like to do on dust carts, especially if they do run, is get the rear suspension up. Anything I can do to take weight off that rear steer axle, I do. So there we go. Jacking that suspension up, you can see the rear rise in there. take it down a bit so it just isn't too bouncy. And that's it. Switch the engine off, and that would be ride height. Well, ride height for when I'm towing. Next, of course, is airlines. We have to supply all vehicles with air. Everything on a HGV runs off air, whether it be the gearbox, the brakes, the doors. Well, some doors. Well, one door on this runs off air. Your seat, the horns sometimes. So what we do is, should a casualty vehicle run out of air, the brakes will automatically apply. So to prevent that from happening, we keep the casualty vehicle topped up with air. So we connect a supply coming off the back of the wrecker to the casualty vehicle. There we go, and there are all the test points for the air on a Mercedes Iconic. There you go. So connect that test point there, and then air will start running through the red air line. It's not too much of an issue because we're going to be topping it up in a second anyway. So didn't get that in properly, spat it back out at me. And there we go. That is our airline connected. So we've put it through the mirror, keeping it up in the air, out the way, so it's not going to be dragging on the floor. Obviously, it dragged on the floor. If it dragged on the floor, it would cut a hole in the airline, and both the wrecker and the casualty vehicle was lose air, and that would be, both vehicles would come to a grinding halt. So we don't want that. So keep it up in the air. There you go, securing that panel. Make sure that doesn't flap open as we're towing it down the road. End up wiping out a cyclist. Okay, so we've lifted, we've chained it down, we've removed the prop, we've supplied air. Next and the final thing is just lights. So we put lights on the back, so obviously other road users can see what we're doing. Not that anybody in London ever pays any attention to which way you indicate, but still, just down the rights of the law, we'll add them on. Plus the LED, they look pretty. Right, there she is. All prepped for our onwards recovery. We left the beacons on because I'm a hero. Just because I forgot. But yeah, there she is. A Mercedes Iconic 26-ton dust cart, lifted and prepped for onwards recovery. And that's it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.